Rick, let's start with the Eagles team, which these are two very different organizations in terms of how they've gotten here. We're going to go through that over the course of this hour here. So let's start with Howie Roseman, the general manager, who is something of a wheeler-dealer when it comes to be a general manager and putting this team together. What are your thoughts about what Howie Roseman has done in the last 5, 6, 7 years, and even more recently in terms of stockpiling the draft picks, creating this roster, and getting them here with a second-round rookie quarterback, now on his rookie deal?
Yeah, no, he's done a phenomenal job putting this roster together. He's built it through trades. He's built it through the draft. He's used almost every avenue that is available to a GM to build a Super Bowl roster like they currently have. But when you're able to stockpile the picks like he was able to, that also gives them the opportunity to go out and trade for an A.J. Brown, yet still have enough draft capital in his pocket to continue to build and retool this roster.
So let's talk about A.J. Brown. I'm glad you went there. He was incredibly important until how that offense worked in the passing game to have Devonta Smith, to have Dallas Goedert. We know about the running game with Jalen Hurts leading the way, but they made a decision last spring during the draft to give up a first-round and a third-round pick, the 18th overall pick, and a third-rounder that later became Jeremy Rucker, the tight end, to go out and get A.J. Brown, who had a huge impact. As a general manager on draft night when things are flying all over the place and it's sometimes hard to focus, at the moment, did you feel like that was a good move for that organization? Is that something you would have considered in the moment, knowing that you needed what felt like one more piece?
Yeah, when you're able to get a talent like that, and the thing that was so rare about that move was it actually happened on draft night. And rarely have you seen any moves like that where a team is going to give a first-round pickup actually on the night of the draft, because when you do that, you are taking a lot of risk. One, okay, you have to get a contract done. So, two, is he going to be able to pass a physical? Because A.J. Brown had some durability issues while he was in Tennessee. So it was amazing how he was able to get all that accomplished and then pull that off on draft night, which is a rarity. But we also seen Arizona, where we're at here, do a similar situation with Hollywood Brown. So the way the NFL is trending right now, and the way these younger general managers are even more aggressive, they're willing to give up draft capital to go get someone they really have targeted. And teams are more willing to give up talented players like an A.J. Brown.
And we'll talk about that as it relates to you back during your time with Minnesota in terms of having to give up draft capital for talented players because of an injury situation. But for now, A.J. Brown obviously worked out, Hollywood Brown less so, but there were a lot of other issues going on in Arizona. But let's talk about that draft class, that rookie class for the Eagles, because we're going to talk about in a little bit the Chiefs draft class, which had a completely different impact on this season. But the Philadelphia draft class, less so. In fact, Grant Calcaterra, the tight end, he was the third tight end, Jordan Davis and Reed Blankenship were the rookies who got the most snaps. And Reed Blankenship, by the way, undrafted out of Middle Tennessee State, got a chance to play because of injuries. I was talking to a couple of Eagles assistant coaches last night at media night, and they were saying that he made his bones on special teams, which sometimes these young players have to do, got the opportunity, and then took full advantage of it. What did you see from this rookie class? As we just said, didn't have a lot to do in terms of contribution-wise, but certainly played a part.
And I'm going to put myself in Howie Roseman's shoes and talk about, from a general manager standpoint, how you have a very talented veteran roster, a lot of very good players on that roster, but this draft class was more to develop, and then when these players eventually have to retire or they have to move on because they can't afford them, they'll have a draft class in place that will hopefully replace some of the critical guys that they're going to probably eventually lose.
All right, that leads me to that question, and we'll see how forthcoming you are as a former general manager. Howie Roseman, well, let's just count the 2017 Super Bowl. Let's start the clock at 2019 for the sake of conversation. Howie Roseman is on the precipice of winning the Super Bowl, and he appears set roster-wise for the 3 or 4 years down the road because, again, Jalen Hurts is on that rookie deal. They'll have to pay him shortly, I'm sure. Or would you rather be less need? He has the Super Bowl in hand. Their roster is in tatters because they traded away everything and then some, and they are looking at a potential huge rebuild. Would you rather have the Super Bowl in your back pocket? That's a big back pocket. Or would you rather have the opportunity to win multiple Super Bowls, but you know how difficult it is?
I'd rather have a Super Bowl in my back pocket and the opportunity to win multiple Super Bowls. You want to have your cake and eat it too. That's what the whole objective of this GM job is. But What Howie has done is he's been able to actually do both, and if they're able to go off, and I know we're going to talk about our predictions at the end of the show, and we'll leave it there, but if they are able to win a Super Bowl, he is set up for this team to be competitive year in and year out for the next 3 or 4 years to go repeat as Super Bowl champions.
All right, I want to give you 2 names of guys that you remember coming through during the draft process when you were general manager, and I know one you really love, but I want to hear the story again. Tell us about quarterback Jalen Hurts, and then tell us about Hassan Reddick, who was undersized coming out of Temple, was misused or miscast in his role in Arizona, and then rediscovered his abilities here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, one of the things you look for is when you're evaluating these players, their track record, and the one thing that really stuck out about Jalen Hurts was the way he handled adversity. So he was at Alabama. He ended up getting benched. He transferred to Oklahoma, did a phenomenal job at Oklahoma. A lot of the questions were, everybody knew how talented of a runner he was, how talented of an athlete he was, but can he throw the ball more accurately? And he has proven that this year before the injury because he hasn't been as effective maybe the last couple games since coming back from that shoulder injury, but he was leading the NFL in plus 25 yards throwing down the field in his quarterback rating. He was the best in the NFL at it, so that's going to be something he's going to have to do this week, but we'll get into that also a little later. But what impressed me the most is I remember sitting with him and interviewing him at the Senior Bowl, and besides Teddy Bridgewater, he was the most impressive interview I've ever sat through. The way he talked about how he handled the adversity at Alabama, how he went and established himself at Oklahoma, how he came to Philadelphia and got a lot of heat early because he's still developing, and all of a sudden everything came to fruition this year where he is one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. So that just tells you what is he made of inside and his inner fiber. And this kid has no quit in him. No matter what you throw at him, he's going to go out there and compete. And it's like, say, throw the ball out on the playground. Let's see who wants to play and don't play. And this kid's definitely one of those kids. If you throw a ball out on the playground, he's going to be the first one to grab it.
And what about Hassan Reddick?
Yeah, he was he came out of Temple. He was an undersized pass rusher. The one thing that really stuck out when you studied him on tape is his first step quickness and his athleticism to come off the edge. And he was a dominant pass rusher at Temple. Then he bounced around a little bit. I think went to Arizona. Then he was at Carolina. And
That's
then
right.
Philly got a great deal for him.
3-year, 45.
Which is a great deal for him. And I think he's one of the top leading sackers in the NFL. But he was another kid, and when you're trying to identify these kids, you can see all the physical ability, you can evaluate the tape, but where you miss on guys and where I've missed on guys is, do they truly have a passion for the game? There was no question after I talked to Jalen Hurts, that box was checked.
Right.
And Hassan Reddick has checked that box as well, because that guy loves to play football. And Philadelphia has done a great job understanding what his strengths are. His strength isn't dropping back in coverage.
No.
His strength is going forward and getting pressure and sacking the quarterback. And that's exactly how Philadelphia is using him.
Absolutely. 16 sacks in the season, 19.5 sacks in the postseason as well.